Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Greg Moyer. As I was talking with him backstage, I'm always interested in the cutting edge ideas, the new where everything is going, where are the trends, trying to get people to think outside the box. And he's got a fantastic background. He's got 30 years in Silicon Valley and a lot of tech experience, and he's here to teach us and talk about how to innovate at a higher level, think creatively at a higher level, and really change the world. So, Greg, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Very happy to be here.
Yeah. Like I said, we connected through Podmatch, but tell people about your story, what you do, and we'll jump right into the discussion.
Well, after spending about 30 years as a creative director and inventor and innovator, I'm actually kind of pivoting a little bit, and I'm taking on. In fact, I'm launching a new program to help people become insanely inventive, and it's really based on something that I discovered about 25 years ago. It all started on one of those nights that we've all had where we've maybe been in our office like at 11:30 at night, stuck. And I had a light bulb moment. I began asking I was actually working on a creative proposal for a client that was due the next morning. And, at the time, during that time in Silicon Valley, the business environment was smoking hot. It was like having your hair on fire. And I was the new creative guy in town. And so there was this expectation that, to always be creative on demand, right? And so I'm the creative guy who wasn't feeling very creative for a while, and burned out, wearing lots of hats. I had this new agency, and as you know, when you run a small business, you're everything, right? you're the accountant and hiring manager and project manager and every other thing. So I kid you not, it was about 11:30 at night. I'm really struggling with what to put on paper. I'm staring at this whiteboard. The stress was literally palpable. My wife's calling, "Are you coming home?" And in fact, I'd hardly really hadn't seen her much. And something occurred to me that I had been taught by a mentor about 10 years prior to that, and I'd never used it in a business setting, but it was a technique that originated by Jesuit monks in the early part of the Renaissance. And what the technique was, it was a very specific technique for activating and harnessing your imagination. And I had used it and then kind of forgot about it. And so I'm saying, well, I've got nothing to lose, right? Do everything I'm supposed to do that I could remember that my mentor had taught me about, and blah, blah, blah. And when you practice this technique and you go through all the steps, it's like unleashing a floodgate of thoughts and ideas. After about 15 or 20 minutes afterwards, then things start bubbling up from your subconscious to your conscious mind, right? And I was able to finish up, but it was the following day after that, after I presented that particular, that creative brief, I'm back in my office and I'm thinking, man, this is not the first time this is going to happen, right? Because, we had all kinds of clients and lots of projects and stuff like that. And so really it was the second light bulb moment I had, which was to ask the question, what would Da Vinci do? Now, he was a boyhood idol of mine. And growing up, I thought we had the same birthday. And then I learned as an adult that his birthday is one day off from mine, but it worked, right? And there was a brand new book that had just come out, and I hadn't read it yet, but I had ordered it. It was laying across my desk, and I'm looking at it, and I'm literally fanning the pages, and some things caught my eye. And I started filling a whiteboard with ideas and a timeline. What is this creative process? And now, at that point in time, I was already one of the pioneers in the country applying the tenets of neuroscience to customer experiences, and media is designed for maximum impact. And so I'm thinking there's got to be some brain science behind this whole creativity thing, right? I'm drawing on the whiteboard. I'm looking through this book. I'm writing down keywords, and then I read the book, and then I started asking, well, what would Edison do? Einstein, Disney, Jobs was just down the street. I used to see him once a week on the campus because I had a couple of inventions that used some Apple technology, and so I was, visiting folks and stuff. When you read their diaries and the contemporaneous accounts of them, they talk about it. In fact, they don't say much about their inventions. They talk more about how they came up with their ideas. And where they are in the timeline of history, it doesn't matter because they all tell pretty much the same story. And I paid really close attention to what I was learning. And what I discovered was a pattern and sequence, these ways of thinking, these thinking and doing habits that were common across all the greatest innovators, past and now through testing and interviews and stuff, present. We've been a lot of new discovery and testing done that today's innovators, significant innovators, score in the 80th and 90th and 100th percentile of the same core breakthrough skills that were demonstrated, skills and behaviors, by significant innovators in the past. And so I learned from that, I practiced it, and I achieved great things with it, and it changed my life. I'm just at a different point in time now. I've 650 deliverables, 9 inventions, 10 innovations, and now what I really want to do is just help other people change their lives as well. So
yeah, really fascinating. I love that. And I love how you're trying to think on a higher level. People such as Steve Jobs and Gates, Elon Musk, all these people that are changing the world. And I can tell, just the way you express yourself, you're at a higher level. So one thing is talking about is this AI is the hype and the buzz now. And
yes, it is.
There's like 2 or 3 key main ideas that, most of the people, but one thing is talking about is becoming irreplaceable in the age of AI, how to compete, thrive, and stay relevant, becoming a category of one, all of these things, brand protection. Mm-hmm. Talk about that.
Sure. So if you think about it, look, AI is a systematic approach, a computer, try to emulate what a human brain does. It's able to accomplish some of that. There's also a lot left out of the equation. And there might be a time, and it'll probably come sooner than later, where it will be able to mimic more of what's going on. But the data and the research over the last 2 or 3 years have been telling us that we're really living in an age of average now. People have a hard time believing this. Our brains like to just think about kind of what's new, right? But if you think about what's new, it's really not. How much this changed over the last 10 years? It hasn't. It's got about the same shape. It does basically the same thing. And it distracts us more, that's for sure. It doesn't matter what the technology is, there's still some limitations as to what it can do versus what we can do as humans. But it really boils down to 3 things. It can't communicate as well as we can. It doesn't have emotions, even though they're trying, and that's scary. We thought that humans would make better leaders, but that threshold has just been crossed. There are AI bots providing leadership on a scale that's higher, scores higher than a lot of human leaders. So that only leaves one thing left, and that's human creativity. And really to be irreplaceable, and if you think about the notion of what kind of work AI is going to replace, everybody's talking about job replacement and things like that. Look, robotics are already replacing jobs. AI is already replacing jobs. So since about last October, about 270,000 jobs in tech alone have been replaced because of the implementation of AI. And that number's, it's just going to increase. Right now, Chat GPT, actually 3 point, can outcode 50% of the coders at Facebook.
Oh,
think about that.
That's
right?
huge savings.
And now add to AI, add what we've already been doing with automation and robotics. And you have a recipe for mass replacement. And it will happen. Now, what's typically not going to happen is a boss coming up to John and saying, John, your job's toast. You're completely being replaced. What we're seeing is not our job in its entirety, but if you take 10 people in marketing, one person with an AI app can accomplish maybe percent of what those 10 people were doing. That means, and maybe not 100% of any one individual, but 40% of each or a variation thereof. That means probably 4 people are going to lose their job. And so when we talk about creativity, we really have to think about it in the terms of operating in a higher order of creativity than what most people normally think about. And there are kind of different levels, right? There's the creativity of, our kids drawing a picture and you put it on the refrigerator. There's the creativity of writing a poem, creating a PowerPoint deck for your team at your company or whatever. Most people don't actually operate beyond that level. Then there's the creativity, maybe inventing a new process, maybe invent a new method that changes an industry. And then it, goes up, in the invention of the satellite, right? I mean, it can go way up.
That's why I'm banking on Elon.
That's right. That's right. But where the real danger is in these lower levels. And there's this gap that's widening. You heard me say we're living in an age of average. And AI, if you think about what it's trained on everything it is allowed to have access to. And then its output is an amalgamation of that. Well, that means it's just creating a race to mediocrity. And there's this kind of widening gap between what science knows and what history has shown us versus what people do. And AI is prepared to fill that gap. But I think the real danger lies in, and one of the things that I've been doing work on recently is I've discovered really 7 concepts of surrendering your creativity to AI. And they range anywhere from loss of personal expression. If we outsource that, we risk losing our voice. So the more, dependence, that's number 2, right? So the more you use, any of the LLM apps for writing, I will guarantee you the worse writer you will become. And then there's the psychological effects of, just these echo chambers that are created by technology really also create a sense of isolation and anxiety and depression. Psychologists are now ringing the bell on this.
Yeah.
People are, there's now apps that you can, try to have a personal relationship with. It sounds funny, but it can lead to, really kind of dangerous psychological, effects. And, and there's a few others. I actually think probably, besides the psychological effects and the reduced skill development. If you don't use your skills, guess what? They get rusty, right?
Yep.
And then of course there's ethical and legal. The AI companies are already getting sued. The lawsuits are stacking up so fast, because they're going out and learning on copywritten material and without permission and, so on and so forth. But I think societally, so individually, those things I think are concerning. Yeah. But I think societally, I think the biggest danger is homogeneity.
Yeah, absolutely right.
We're already seeing it. We're already seeing that when you have Midjourney or, take any of the generative image creating AI apps and have it design a house, they're all starting to look the same already. And because they're learning on what we've recently done, now even the people who invented all of this are now expressing their big concern because it's now learning on itself. And so that's like a self-perpetuating, situation. Now, what I'd like to do is just make a quick comment and kind of demark from what I just said to how AI is beginning to be used in medicine, because that's a different story. So AI in general and these, language learning model apps for writing and, whatever, right? Those are what I was just referring to. But you can also take these same models and have them only focus on a narrow aspect of data or information. And that's where they move from being, concerning to being, maybe having a really great outcome. So for example, teaching it with a limited learning model, teaching it how to, find cancer, for example, and things like that. So I just want people to go into this with their eyes wide open. It's not all good, but it's not all bad, and learn, recognize the difference and make your choices accordingly on how you're going to proceed with it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like if if a Google engineer, makes $500K a year, and basically you can use ChatGPT for $20 a month, think about how many, Google engineers or Facebook, all the, like, how much that could save the company. This brings into question whether or not, like, for example, I spent tens of thousands on editors last year, and now I just use ChatGPT and some AI editing, and it's like I saved tens of thousands, and it's in my productivity 6x, almost 10x by the end of the year. And if AI is gonna kind of change jobs, and this brings into question, kids are struggling in school and paying hundreds of thousands in debt, and is this really the best way? And Khan Academy and YouTube, all these, podcasting as well. It's where this brings into so many questions. And I think Elon was saying that there's the two most disruptive is going to be climate change, which people are not prepared for, and then also AI. So this coming wave, it's 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 like a tsunami if you're not ready.
That's right, and you know what I think the irony about his comment was, because I remember when he made it, is that AI is climate change unfriendly technology there is. I mean, AI is creating more carbon than most small towns because of the amount of computing power it requires. It is sucking energy like you can't believe. I mean, it is just really unreal. So there's really kind of an interesting irony there, I think. Well, you're absolutely, I think what you said is spot on. I'm using some AI apps in a limited way because I did a lot of testing. I was actually kind of a little skeptical, and I'm glad I was, because I have a really high level of expertise in the neuroscience of how our brains are designed to consume information and then store it. But I also have a high level of expertise in how our brains, in how the whole creativity engine in our brain works.
Yeah.
At least to the point of what we know. I mean, there's still some mysteries, but unfortunately, our brain didn't come with instructions. But we've learned a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, and I can't tell you how much AI is wrong and really kind of lame, and also how it just makes stuff up.
Oh yeah.
So what I always suggest to the folks that I've been working with is maybe use it on the early stages. I mean, it's great for outlining. It's great for kind of coalescing your thoughts and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And maybe pulling in some things that maybe you didn't think of or whatever. Don't lose sight of how powerful your brain already is. Our brains, I mean, even the folks who, have launched all these recent AI apps, all admit in a New York second that it still cannot keep up with the human brain.
Yeah.
And our brains are just amazing things, and they get more amazing the more we use them. So don't lose sight of that. But I love to hear about you're able to be more efficient. I'm starting to use and in fact, for the first time I started using an AI video editing app. Oh my gosh, I think it I just recorded like 42 videos and had to, do a bunch of editing and whatnot on all of them. And I think it cut the amount of time that I would have had to have spent probably by at least 60, 70%.
Oh yeah. It's amazing.
So that, for that, I'm really grateful. There will, the train's already left the station. Our lives are going to be changed, whether we're prepared for it or not. And I think that I really do believe the people that are going to be most prepared are going to be the ones who deliberately activate, their abilities to be creative, to be more on demand, and basically do the things even the AI experts say is going to be a little while before AI can do. And that's the human part of it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was like basically when the internet came and people didn't know how to use websites, or people didn't know how to set up e-commerce sites. And then when social media came, if you didn't know how to use that to build an audience and create engagement, if you didn't know how to use SEO, you were SOL, because people can now access millions of people just, for a fraction of the cost very easily. So AI is the same way as well.
And there's some stuff coming down the road that would just scare you. I mean, wait till Chat 5.
Oh man.
I mean, it's going to operate on a factor of probably more than 10x of Chat 4.
Oh man, that's gonna be be powerful but scary.
but regardless, one of the conundrums that they're really facing is this whole notion of it training on its own output, because a lot of the AI output, all of us that are experimenting or using it, right, on a, as part of the course of what we do, a lot of that output is getting put back out on the net, and that's how AI learns, is what's out in the wild, right? You have a closed model, like what you might use, for some kind of medical purpose, and it doesn't have to be medical. You can, like, I'm getting ready to move my learning series over to a platform that is gonna let me use an AI app to just learn my content. So it's not, it's not going to be like chat where you can just, where it's going to go out and universally respond to anything. It's going to learn, my content and whatever I ask it to learn, and which could be even all the things, like my posts and stuff like that. And it will allow my customers and, my clients to literally have a conversation with my content.
How can people contact you, follow you, check out you're very knowledgeable, and obviously people want to, check out your work, reach out to you, and etc.
Well, I would suggest, first of all, I'm very happy to connect with people through LinkedIn, so they can, look me up. And, if you want a couple of links, I can send those to you. You can, post those. I would love to offer a completely free resource. I actually pulled it out of my advanced mastery course. And I'm like offering it to friends and family. And anybody who's listening is now a friend. So, if they will go to become, it's actually, people are saying, Greg, this is like one of your best pieces. You're giving it away. I guarantee that you go, it's a 7-part series. You can read it or listen to it. And if you do the things that I, suggest, you'll get back 8 hours of your week on a weekly basis.
Oh, definitely.
And it's based on a superpower that I developed while I was in Silicon Valley. I had to be able to spend more time than the average person in deep work, right? In deep level work and in flow. So I basically had to learn how to make myself distraction proof. And so I've taken all those different things that I've learned over the years and put it together in a 7-part series. So I'd be happy to share that as well.
Oh, nice. And yeah, for all the listeners out there, let's thank Greg. He's on LinkedIn, and all of that resource that he was discussing will be in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been great.